Yo, what is up everyone, Tachi here. So let's do a quick run through of the new alternative banner, the new reality banner for Dorothy. Pretty much the same as every single other alternative. This one has a myriad of stats. Most of it is HP at 11 and 12, and then obviously it seems the physical stats here, 130 and 150, plus I think you get a little bit more earlier. So it's not too bad. It's a little nice amount of stats here and there, but it's nothing too big. I definitely wouldn't just like go for it just because of this. So I mean, it does have good like amount of stats from level 1 to level 10. I think it's like 600 something, so it's not too bad if you want just a little bit of stats. The only problem I have with it is that since it's so diverse, it's half of them are kind of like useless for me. So not that worth it for me, but I think it could be worth it for more physical related jobs. Anyhow, moving on to the actual weapon of this class. It is going to be an axe with DC 1, and it has a small increase on defense. Because it has a small increase in defense, it's obviously going to do slightly less damage than the normal tier 3 axes, so that kind of sucks. And also it is a DC 1 instead of a DC 2, but overall it's not that bad. The only problem I kind of have with it really is that the M attack is a little bit on the low side. Like 2187 is not all too high. I think that actually might be kind of on the low side. But it does have relatively decent on defense. M attack is on the high side. That must be why it has such low P attack. So like overall, I think this weapon is pretty okay. I don't think necessarily this is something I would go hard on. If you are a physical DPS, I would probably just wait for a slightly better DC2 hammer. Just my personal opinion, especially since this is not exactly a guaranteed. So you could either wait for spec, but I didn't really like the spec either. I guess the spec is still better than this. Or you could wait for another standard banner that's slightly better for you. Just like, I don't really think this is that good. You know? I mean, it is a job with a DC 1 hammer, so I guess it's okay, but yeah, I don't know. Unless you're like whaling and you want to get like every DC, I just don't think this is that good to spend your crystals on right now. You could just wait and see. Like, I know GC is coming around, but the minor increase in damage that you would get from sticking this in your grid is not, it's not really worth it unless you like MLB it. And I mean, even then, you know, yeah, 1707. I mean, that's kind of okay, I guess. Anyways, moving on to the next weapon, we are going to be getting a new harp. Look at that. It is going to be a support boon too, with physical and magical attack to 1.5 allies. That's pretty good, actually. I kind of like that. Stat wise, it's pretty good, actually. It's actually really good. Very high stats at MLB and obviously at level 80. At level 80, it's actually about as good as some MLBs, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, I don't really mind this physical magic attack to 1.5. I obviously would prefer if it was just like a tier 4 M attack to 1.5, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But just the fact that it's support boon 2 alone, and it does give magic attack of some sort, and it's also a 1.5, that alone already just makes this a go-to pool. So if you guys have already done your spec banner, this actually might be a pretty good pull for mints and sorks. And I guess technically you could get it if you are if you're a healer as well, but that's kind of iffy because you don't really need that much in terms of support boon. Support boon is actually probably less a priority for clerics. You'd probably rather want something else. Normally I think it's the skills that kind of like trigger off when you're just doing actions. So those types of things, things that increase your allies attack, defense, whatever, those are probably slightly better, because even if you're going like 17-3 or like 16-4, which even that is like kind of doubtful, if you're going 16-4, I mean, support boon is not going to proc that often with only 4 support boons. So yeah, I would definitely say this is a pull for sure, but it's not a main priority for non-minstrels. And I guess sorcerers as well. Maybe sorcerers could probably grab this if you guys don't have any other like attack related weapons, because I think some of them for some reason still run a lot of defense stuff. I guess it's just more common. Next, we're going to be looking at another staff. This time it is a 2-target heal, which is good. It is also tier 3, so that probably means it has a decent ratio. Only problem I have with it is obviously it's not recovery support, so kind of sucks, but it does have a fixed in. Oh, I mean, I guess that's not all too bad. I guess having a small, what is it, like 10% chance, I guess, is it around there somewhat, something like that? It's a small chance of giving an ally like 0.5 stacks of physical attack. It's not all too bad. Stat spread is actually really good. 1200 something on both is actually pretty fucking high for a staff. Typical, you normally see like one at like 12 something or 1300, and then the other one has like 800 or something. So this is definitely on the high side. Overall stats as well is quite high, so that's not too bad. But I mean, I guess at this point it just depends on like what you're trying to go for. If you don't mind not having the RS2 here, having this 2-target is actually not too bad either. So I mean, it's pretty good. I would probably pull on this if I was a cleric, and that's just as like a little bonus. Now something like this is probably going to be kicked off of your grid pretty quick. I'm not actually sure now that I think about it. I think I would have to run the math. Do you think that this 2-target non-RS has a higher weightage than a 1-target RS? In terms of like overall healing, like let's say in the future, right? Let's say you have 20 weapons with RS and you have this, right? But one of those RS weapons is a 1-target heal, 1-target with RS2. Would you have a higher healing with that weapon inside, or would you have a higher healing with this weapon inside? As you have more RS and as you have more DC and all of those types of weapons, the 19th and the 20th of it is not going to make that much of a difference. So perhaps in situations like that, it might still be worth running a much better main skill in those scenarios. So I would have to run the math, but I question that. I don't know. Perhaps having just a 2-target heal in general would be better. But anyways, let's move on to the next one, which is going to be Ouroboros. Ouroboros greatly lowers physical attack for all frontline enemies, including KO'd ones. I mean, honestly, I just don't see much of a point in this. Like, what are the chances that you're fighting against an enemy that's so high in like physical DPS that you actually require this, when you could just use Bird? I think it's Bird. Wait, let me check. Yeah, it's Bird. Why would you use this instead of just using Bird, which will actually be more useful 99% of the time? Like, the only thing I can see is obviously the cost, right? Like the 200 cost on Bird, but it's not like we don't use other 200 costs like SL anyways. Obviously until we get the SL replacement, which will come eventually soon, TM. But at the same time, we are also going to be getting a Bird replacement as well that also has a Begrudging Blade. And that lowers all types of attacks, not just physical attacks. So I just don't really see much of a point in this personally. I suppose maybe against like those 1 or 2 will DC grid people, maybe. But yeah, I mean, on top of that anyways, you guys already know I'm not a huge fan of just like defensive nightmares. This is a defensive nightmare. So like nightmares that you use when you are super behind and you need something to help you survive. I'm not a huge fan of those. For example, let's say you're fighting a guild that is slightly stronger than you. So I suppose, for example, like looking at guilds on paper, I believe that technically Everlasting, the guild that we just fought a couple days ago, is slightly stronger than Choten, but it's not strong enough that we stand no chance. It's probably like a 60-40 or like a 40-60, I suppose, because I'm talking from my perspective. It's not that low of a chance of us winning. It's pretty high. The guild fights are mostly even around here. if we were to use something like this, it would be a waste of an opportunity. We would be much better off just like waiting for them to use a nightmare, for example. Like, let's say they pop SL, it would be much smarter for us, instead of using some shit like this, to just use Dryas and use the extra bonus damage coming from the SL to just kill them, you know? So like, you would be much better off doing something like that, which is technically a defensive playstyle, right? Reactionary, as opposed to just using things. It's much smarter for us to do something like that than to use something like this. I just don't really see much of a point in it. I guess the only defensive nightmare I would really even think of using right now is Red Rose. And I suppose no one uses Library Wisp, so I can't really count that as a defensive nightmare. It's self-buffing anyways. The only other one as well, I technically, would you consider Ogre a defensive nightmare? Since technically you only use Ogre when you're losing, is that technically a defensive nightmare? I'm not sure. I would say no, but some people might view it that way. Also, what else? Maybe Noin occasionally, or Digitalis, but like, that's very rare usage. Very, very rare usage. So like, right now the current meta is like pretty much just using elementals and obviously CC still has a place, but I'm starting to like fade off of CC as well. As I've seen, like, it doesn't help that much when you are at 0 or above stacks. Usually you are positive stacks when you pop CC, so I might start saving CC for like when we lose Book Shinma. I feel like that's a smarter choice. Because if we're like super debuffed, or like if we're super debuffed and we didn't die, it might just be smarter to just use CC, in my personal opinion. But we'll find out. I haven't actually had the chance to actually use it when we're debuffed, because we actually won the last couple Book Shinmas. So yeah, we'll see. Next guild battle, I think we're fighting against someone today that should give us a decent fight. Although at the same time, I think they're also 14 out of 15, which is a bit of a shame. Anyways, moving on to the next thing, which is going to be the orb. No. Stop it. Get help. Why? Are you, like, guys, stop. It's just no. It doesn't even have good M attacks, so it's not like you can slot it into the subgrid, bro. Just use other weapons, man. God. Anyways, that is going to be the end of this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys found it informative. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe if you guys want to see future videos. Anyways, I am out. Have a nice day.